Saudis call for return of pre-Islamic pagan goddesses, sparking outrage. This is so juicy. Okay. In a bold move diverging from its ultra conservative roots, Saudi Arabia is witnessing a growing trend on social media advocating for the recognition and celebration of ancient Arabian pre Islamic deities as part of the nation's cultural heritage. This movement has ignited controversy among religious Saudis and Muslims, challenging the kingdom's traditionally strict Islamic identity. A notable post by a Saudi user on Twitter highlighted the significance of the goddess Al-Uzza, stating, quote, "From the past to the future, Al-Uzza is always there. We're, as Saudi Arabians, deeply connected with our past. Doesn't matter if we're Muslim or not, it's an Arabic history." This perspective reflects a broader sentiment that embraces these ancient deities not as historical symbols, but as integral parts of Saudi Arabia's evolving national identity. Critics, however, view this as an attempt to undermine Islamic beliefs with accusations of governmental or foreign manipulation. Muslim YouTuber, our favorite Armin, Daniel Hakikaju, criticized the movement, stating, quote, "A major component of secularizing Muslim countries is creating a nationalistic narrative that revolves around an ancient and long lost forgotten religion that predates Islam. The debate underscores a significant cultural and ideological shift within Saudi society as it grapples with modernization and a redefinition of its identity." So, this is fascinating. So, let me be clear here that just because there are a few people posting about this on Twitter does not mean that this is like a massive movement within the country, right? But it is very interesting to see some of this trending a little bit, or people even talking in this way. And it's it's fascinating to me. So part for an example is there is a museum in Saudi Arabia that's like I think it's called the National Heritage Commission. And at the National Heritage Commission, they have on display several essentially idols of these pre-Islamic pagan goddesses. And as someone in the live chat pointed out, is that Al-Uzza, yeah, Rami is pointing out that Al-Uzza is Allah's daughter. So Allah, the pre-Islamic Allah had three daughters. Al-Uzza, Manat, and Al I want to say Al-Azhar, but that's
Lut,
not true.
Lut, eh,
No, no, no.
Lut.
I know Al-Uzza, Manat, and Al something. Anyways, and in fact, these three daughters of Allah
Lot, Lot, Al-Lat, Al-Uzza,
and Manat,
Manat. Yes.
these three daughters are actually mentioned in the Quran.
Well, no, it
And
wasn't. It was. I mean, it was the satanic verses that was
but it
removed.
and still is in but
It
isn't it in
refer.
it?
Wait, it's wasn't it removed? It was removed.
Was it
It was
removed or
referred to it.
abrogated?
Wait, hold on. I think it
So
was
then where
removed.
is it referred to?
Hold on. I will check this.
Yeah, okay.
I remember.
Um and I don't know. I was asking Armin before the show. I'm like, am I out of touch the fact that I think that they simply have these idols on display in a museum in Saudi is bonkers? Again, maybe I'm out of touch. But the idea of having these idols even on display in a historical setting or historical context in the land of the prophet is still freaking bonkers to me. Because like Armin and I was discussing before the show, we've had two prophets showing us what to do with idols. You're supposed to smash them, you're supposed to destroy them. So I think personally, I maybe it's just because I understand like the significance of what that means that I find it shocking that these are even on display at a museum in Saudi. Um, the second thing being is that what well, one, if someone is kind of acknowledging the significance of it, this is treading like dangerously close to shirk. And also from a not necessarily religious perspective, it's really interesting to think about this process that has begun since around 2017 with bin Salman to create a Saudi national identity outside of an Islamic identity. This is an ongoing project of MBS. And when Daniel Hakikaju commented and saying a major part of secularizing Muslim countries is creating a nationalistic narrative, that's actually something that I agree with.
Yeah, I do agree with this as well. This is
Except we
insane.
think it's an awesome thing.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, you mentioned. Oh, so so yeah, you're right. The name is still there. The part that is removed is the part that mentions them as gods or daughters of Allah. That is the part that was the satanic verses that was removed. The part that is the correction of those satanic verses, and also the part that forgives Muhammad, that he thought that those verses from Satan were actually from God. There's a verse that comes after it, like, don't worry, we forgive you. Other prophets made similar mistakes. The Quran actually says that. Like, no, it's okay. Don't worry. We got you. We got you, Muhammad.
We all have a bad day. It's fine, bro.
Yeah, have bad days. You think God, you think Satan's words are actually God's words. It happens.
It happens to the best of
But
us.
it happens to the best of us. But yeah, so Islamically, both Abraham and Muhammad um, showed you exactly what you're supposed to do with idols. You're supposed to destroy them and break them apart, right? This is why Taliban destroyed that big Buddha statue. What they were doing was completely Islamic. Abraham
Or
showed us the
ISIS
way. Muhammad,
destroying, priceless
yes,
the heritage of humanity, the
exactly.
Babylonian and
Exactly.
Sumerian statues. I still can when I see the photos of what ISIS did to those cultural
Right.
heritage sites, like my brain still breaks to this day. This is something they robbed
Yeah.
from everyone. They robbed from the world.
Right. Yes. But it's pretty based apart that they're trying to separate the Arab from Islam. They're saying that we don't the part. Can you read that part again? The part is like, okay, we don't care that this is Islamic. I'm not Islam, because this is what I heard. I know you didn't say exactly this, but what I heard is like, we don't care this is un-Islamic. It's Arab. So like, screw your Islam. We're celebrating our Arabism, right? Is that
Mhm.
not what you heard? What did you
Basically,
like? Can you?
so the
Yeah.
person on Twitter said, as Saudi Arabians, we're deeply connected with our past. It doesn't matter if we're Muslim or not. It's Arabic history.
Wow, this is putting being Arab above being Muslim. Like, this is celebrating Arab culture. Like, this is also trying to separate Arab culture from Islamic culture. This is, as somebody from Iran who's seen this be a main, huge in Iran. Like, this is new for me in Saudi Arabia. I know this is common in Egypt. People are celebrating pre-Islamic Egypt as a way to separate Egyptian culture from Islamic culture. I know this is very, very common in Iran. I've grew up experiencing this in Iran, constantly trying separating Iranian culture from Islamic culture. This is a major division in Iran constantly throughout my childhood. I've always experienced this. However, I've never seen this anywhere else. I haven't seen this in Saudi Arabia. I didn't think I would ever see this in Saudi Arabia, trying to create a separation now. It's interesting. And
I
using
know it's wild.
usually they use history as a way to do this as well. Pre-Islamic history, celebrating pre-Islamic history is an attempt to try to celebrate a different identity of the people living there, um, from the Islamic identity that they have. So I don't know. Do you think this trend will pick up? in Saudi Arabia? I mean, it already has, I guess, right?
Well, in terms of the like the literal acknowledgement of the pagan goddesses, I don't know. But in terms of building out a national identity, an Arab-based national identity for Saudis, I think this is going to continue because in 2022, it was the first they celebrated the first Saudi National Day. And the first Saudi National Day is celebrated on I think the 22nd of February. Um is designed to celebrate the day in like 1727 when back in the day it was the crowning of the first King Saud, basically, or when he took over his empire. And so it's an
Mm,
attempt to, I mean, yes, it is obviously associated to the monarchy, but it's still an attempt to create a national day, a national identity. And this is major for a country that has the Quran as its constitution.
mm,
Like this is
mm,
especially within Islamic identity, having being Muslim be your overarching, most important identity, most important member of your super tribe, at least in theory in Islamic practice, and trying to move away. Because I'm not saying that like that's true for all people, right? A lot of people like their tribal identity will come first. You know what I mean? Um, but in theory, it's supposed to be a universalizing super tribe identity. And to take a
mm.
step back from that and start to build out a national identity, well, obviously, we still have a lot of problems with MBS and the Saudis. I mean, not Saudis as a people. I'm talking about the regime, the authoritarianism, the facade of liberalizing all these things, and obviously what they do to Yemen. But the building out of a national identity, I think, is a positive step. It's a very positive step. It is secularizing slowly in a way. In a way.
Yes. It's amazing to me how many humans need history to build identities. It's interesting how our minds are not flexible enough to be able to create identities, useful, um, because we have individual identities and group identities. Some group identities are harmful, some of them are helpful. For example, when it comes to uh, civic nationalism, I think that's a very useful group identity that encourages teamwork and doing greater things than what individuals could do. But it's always interesting to maybe because my mind doesn't need history. I mean, I enjoy history, but I don't need history to build identities. But it's always interesting to me when it comes to trying to build identities or competing identities, people have to refer to their history it seems like it's required. And I still don't understand why that is
No,
required to
I
build
mean,
identities.
this is literally something I when I was doing, I was studying child development, and I was doing an advanced research course in, university, and we were studying moral development among children. And Armin, this is a phenomenon we see in children from a very early age across cultures, across ethnicities, is that if a child has a positive, for lack of a better term, like ethnic identity, they use different terminology in psychology, of course. Um, that child will have more positive outcomes versus children that have very negative beliefs about their own in group, their own ethnicity, so to speak. They have worse outcomes.
I, can I? Okay, so I think Ramin is also answering my question very well. I don't think he's right. It's not about history, it's about stories. To build
Mhm,
identities, we need stories, and history is just a subcategory of stories. And that's why
mhm.
we constantly use history. So Robin is saying you have to build it around a narrative, a story. Doesn't have to be history, but it's fertile grounds. That's a very good. Yeah, identities are built around stories. Exactly. Even individual identities are built around stories. Um, we got some super chats and a comment that you
Yep.
starred You want to add this
No,
to
but
it?
this is the thing. I just want to
Oh,
say one more thing about this whole identity thing. This is why if we're
mm.
I don't think that nationalism is inherently the most toxic racist thing in the world. I don't. I would
Oh no.
rather have a because there are people that say this bullshit. I would rather have a group of people have their super tribe identity, so to speak, be based around the values within a specific nation state than bloodline or dogma.
Right, of course. So
And yeah, I people need to get that through their head. We need to have some sort of super tribe in one way, shape, or form. This is part of how we
yeah,
operate. And I kind of think of it as
well,
like teams. When we go to the Olympics, we have our teams. Like
yeah. Um, so here's the thing: we have individualism and we have collectivism, right? So for individualism, we need individual identities, and for a collective mindset, we need group identities, right? And when a lot of us have our experience with group identities has been through religion, and that's why we have had such a bad experience with group identities. So a lot of us, when we come out of religion, we are so tired of group identities that we go heavily into individualism and individualism only, and we just wash our hands completely from group identities. And that's why so many people who leave religion, they kind of have this allergic reaction towards nationalism as well, because they say like, oh, that's the same thing, we had a group identity with religion, this is basically nationalism, it's kind of like that. But that doesn't that's I think incorrect. We need group identities. We need group identities that make sense. So when it comes to a collective, identity or a group identity, that's harmful when you use it to judge people. So when it comes to judging people, you need to completely give into individualism, because you can't do guilt by association. You can't do guilt by because somebody belongs to a certain group. You can't be like, your ancestors did this, therefore judge you because of it, or your group has done this. Somebody within your group has done this, and judge somebody else just because they belong to that group as well. So when it
so
comes to
freaking
judging
lazy and
people,
lame.
yes, exactly. So when it comes to judging people and rewarding people, we have to go full on individualism. But when it comes to teamwork and doing big things, individualism is not enough. People need to get together to achieve great things. So group identities are very useful when it comes to cooperation and teamwork. And one of these best group identities is nationalism, civic nationalism, which is within liberal values. So we have some really bad experiences with nationalism, but that's why so many people have washed their hands completely off of nationalism, because those are the types of nationalism that uses ethnicity, or blood, DNA, history, or some other things as a way um, to build this narrative that we all belong to the same group. But civic nationalism is more within liberal values and liberal ideas, which is not based on none of those things. It's not based on blood, it's not based on DNA, it's not based on race, it's not based on any of that. It's based on the understanding that we have a new legal identity here, and for whatever reason, now the citizenship of this nation state we belong to, because we all share citizenship of this a legal entity, this nation state. The concept of a nation state is an invention of humans, and it has been working very well for us. Ever since we created this concept, we have been able to manage the world a lot better, and has brought a lot of peace and prosperity to the world. So it has been proven itself very useful. So because for whatever legal reason we share a citizenship within this nation state, let's use that as a way for us to cooperate, have a sense of belonging to this nation states with each other, and see each other as fellow teammates, and cooperate with each other towards a much bigger goal than any of us individually could have accomplished. This is what I call civic nationalism, and it's a good kind of nationalism.
And that concludes today's lesson. No, I'm kidding. We got some super chats. So Koljars is saying, also from Croatia, hail Eris and Satan. Well, thank you for the super chat, and hail yourself.
Thank you.
Chris gave us $5. Thank you, Chris. And
Thank you.
This comment by Shami is so funny to me. He's saying Saudis calling for a return of this, meaning the pre-Islamic identity, and Hakikaju making sense for once. I need to lay down. This is too much.
But the difference is that Hagaju does not like it, even though he's making sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gasian
Thank you
American
guys.
gave us a super chat. Thank you, Gasian, saying this is why ancestors are important and why their identities around Dungeons and Dragons and Comic Con. We should make a role playing game called Crosses and Crescents. I think we did, and it was called The Crusades.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when it comes to stories, for some reason, we also care about age. We care that it's old for some reason. Like the stories, if it's new stories, for some reason we like them less than it's old. So if we are making a narrative to build a group identity around it, the age of that story, so for somehow makes it more valuable.
Well, we want something bigger than ourselves to give us meaning.
That's right. That's why the age of it makes it seem bigger. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's very interesting. Okay. All right. Guys, thank you again for all the super chats. As you know, these streams get demonetized, so you guys are helping us be able to continue the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But if you, again, a reminder, if you're not giving us super chats, that's okay. Like the stream. If you don't like the stream, then that's not okay. Okay, you are not. I'm not going to forgive you. Okay, at the day of judgment, I'm going to come. No, never mind. But just like the stream right now. That's an Islamic way of threatening people. Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do. And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.